Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome episode of Push the Point. I've got my, this is just, how long has it been? It's been you're like the usual now, this is the usual suspect.
I think it has been at least 3 years, maybe 4. Maybe we are in the 4th year of doing stuff together. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, maybe 4th year, but although I would say if we'd managed to do that, I think Push the Point's only been 3, but it doesn't really matter because it's Yorgos! Yay! This time, we're back with our first take deck techs, and we've battled it out with everybody, and you landed with Florian Rotwood Harbinger, which I think it suits this play style that you've been mucking around with this older mid-range. It's so big hits.
I got the best deal out of
it. He is this guy is an extremely exciting arena player for me. I think Aurora, after seeing Daniel's deck tech, is also really spicy, like really Briar-esque. This one, on the other hand, feels super ridge range for me, but let's just go through it, right? So Florian Rotwood Harbinger, if there are 8 or more Earth cards in your banish zone, Florian gets, if you would create 1 or more aura tokens, instead create that many plus 1 of each of those tokens. Essence of Earth, so he just gets to put lots of Earth cards in his deck. So in short, it's Mordred Tide.
Yeah, basically it's Mordred Tide, yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. So break it down to me about this hero ability.
So this deck is built for those persons that want to take the slow walk rather than take the bus to go to a location, you know?
Yeah.
We need to take our time to set everything up before we drown the opponent with outvaluing them and stuff. So what we're looking to do is we want to get 8 Earth cards as quickly as possible to the banish zone to activate Florian, because Florian will then give us double the amount of any tokens. These tokens most of the time are going to be rune scents, so it will feel like exactly what Hamish said, that we might have an active Mordred Tide, and some cards go insane in value. The easiest one to notice and the favorite card with rune blades probably is Grasp of the Arcanite.
Yes.
Doubling the amount of Grasp of the Arcanite tokens every single turn just feels so great. Imagine turning any yellow card into 2 arcane damage. I mean, the math adds up quite quickly, and that's really interesting with this hero.
Yeah, is having the 8 cards in the banish zone quite a problematic sort of approach, because right at the very start of the game, his hero text is blank, apart from the deck building element of Essence of Earth, right? Is that a bit of a fair doubt? Like, because his hero ability is super strong, is it quite problematic though with the decomposing part?
It creates a dynamic that we need to adapt with our gameplay, that we have different goals towards the beginning of the game and towards the end stage of the game, and that's pretty clear with Florian. That towards the first few turns, at least 3 turns, maybe sometimes more, we are fine with simply blocking. We are fine with just, we need to find ways to bin as many cards as possible to the graveyard. And if we move into the deck as well, that's the reason why I think Fruits of the Forest is such an important card in this deck, because it helps us speed up the first few turns of the game, and we really need to bin as quickly as possible many Earth cards, because compared to some other decks like Verdance, we don't have insane inevitability towards the late game. It's not like we reached a point and the game is instantly over. We need to actually start playing a fair game and actually kill them with cards. So we need to reach the point where we want to start attacking as quickly as possible.
Sure. It feels like Florian's mid game is like the point, right? Whereas Verdance's end game is like the point, if that makes sense. So he just arrives there a little bit sooner. But let's go through this deck. I will just address this massive thing in the room. The Dread Scythe. Bro, right, look. You're going to put it in. Someone in the comments is going to go, bro, Reaping Blade. Just grasp Reaping Blade. Isn't that better value? But why did you pick Dread Scythe?
So In short answer, it obviously is. In short answer, obviously, yeah. Towards the later stages, using grasp, making two rune sounds, and swinging with weapon with only one blue is better. But there are many matchups where actually stopping our own life total is a bit problematic. You
Mm.
know, because we don't have too many ways, but as I already said, Fruits of the Forest is basically sigil that can also pitch and is also earth, which is really important. And there are many decks that will have a hard time leaking damage. There
Got
are
ya.
some, they might need to set up, they might need to. We could be efficiently blocking and getting Fruits of the Forest as extra cards to simply gain the heal. So actually preventing the health gain there from our own Reaping Blade feels quite bad. Obviously, here there is an argument that if you are ahead in life as Florian, aren't you winning already? Not always, because there are many decks in the new meta game, and Verdance, for instance, is a huge example that we will be ahead in life total, but we will not be winning the match because we might need to reach 50 life to play around the OTK, or maybe versus an Ocilio that wants to set up a huge turn, we might want to push the life a bit out of his reach. So that's why we don't want to prevent ourselves with using Reaping Blade.
Okay, got ya. That's fair. I like it. Finally, I hope this is a card that does become more of a thing. I've got this old bad boy in cold foil, and hopefully this is the way. But let's go through some of the equipment. I grasp of the Art Knight. Yeah, yeah. But with Dread Scythe, is it conflicting?
It is slightly, but most of the time if you have a three-card hand, you don't want to grasp and scythe and arsenal. You prefer to grasp and attack for 7 and with 2 arcane. So
Yeah,
most of the time, scythe is only a one-card play. If you have a two-card play, you most of the time want to attack rather than rune sense and attack.
sure.
And most of the time, you don't want the game to reach the state where you simply grasp and attack with Scythe, because at that point, most of the time, you're not fatiguing them because they just pitch a blue, prevent the 3 arcane, and only block with a card. So
Yeah,
you want to end the game before we reach that stage.
got ya. That's fair. But solid card. It's a battle one. Yeah, if you're playing Rune Blades, you should pick up Grasp of the Art Knight, basically. It's very, very strong. Speaking of a new Runeblade equipment, Face Purgatory. This card is it the from what I know, the LSS devs, some of them have even said this is the strongest legendary in the game. Whoa! But let's go through it, right? When it's defends together with an attack action card and a non-attack action card, the attacking hero discards a card and you draw a card. Right. Very, very strong for a big disruption. But why did you put it into your Florian deck?
So even though the deck might not feel, we've seen lists compared to this Florian that have of other classes that have way more defense reactions, and you can see that they are, a defensive deck that can block out everything, and you might not get that vibe with Florian, but that's where Face Purgatory and Barskin of the Millennium Tree shine, because the the combination of having access to defense reactions, sometimes embodiments of Earth. Also, if they get too greedy, you can also punish them with Face Purgatory. It creates a kit that really prevents a lot of angles of attacking. So even though our deck is not the best kit of defensive cards, in combination with the equipment, we actually cover a lot of angles of attacking, and that's where Face Purgatory shines.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times, brute players go, "Oh, I cast Bones into Blood Rush, and then I do this huge attack and have my Pulping in my hand to finish the combat chain," and you're like, "Okay, Face Purgatory, block with an attack, block with a defense, with block with an
Yeah.
non-attack, block with an action," and you suddenly lost your 8 power card on the Blood Rush. So the first Blood Rush goes through. The second Blood Rush I prevent with Barkskin, and suddenly there is not enough damage to threaten you, and you force them into playing a fair game, and your fair game has permanent Mordred tied
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, basically you're dragging them into that stage of where you're the strongest over like that early point of the game. Yeah, that's really really cool. And now that you've brought it up, Bart Skin of the Millennium Tree, bro, this card slaps. I knew it would be good when I read it, but it's even nuts. It's more nuts than I think.
Yeah, even though we are a deck that's not running like 13 on attacks that we've seen other Rune Blades run,
Yeah.
even if we get like most of the time you will get two or maybe four extra value out of Barkskin of the Millennium Tree. If you get even one more, it's insane. I mean,
Mm.
it's it prevent versus most aggressive strategies, they go, oh, a big turn, Barkskin completely negates the big turn. Oh, another big turn, Face Purgatory completely negates the big turn, and you're like, okay, I'm happy now. Let's play the game.
The fact
Let's
the
play
fact that you
something else.
just need, even if you've like, I don't know how like the best way to go around this, whether you need to wait until Florian is activated or not. But even if you manage to just get 4 into the banish zone, that way it's already going, right? Yeah, I know you can get the maximum value of it when Florian is online, but it still feels like actually, even if I got 4, I block with this, I block with a non-attack action card, I'm blocking for 6 with just this and one card, which is nuts, right? If anyone could turn around and go, here's a block 3 with your cards, it blocks for 6. That's nuts. Like, everyone will take that any time of the day. And when it's done, it's an earth card for you to decompose. Is that
which
yeah.
which is super relevant sometimes, because sometimes the thing with decompose is that you still need to keep decomposing after you've even flipped Florian. So sometimes you might struggle a bit to find these extra earth cards. So sometimes you might just go, oh, I'm popping Barkskin simply to get my extra earth card
Mm.
in order to be able to play my big
The
decompose attack, my big
yeah,
felling of
felon.
the crown.
Yeah, that's it. And then well ground feels like it's in that same boat, right? If you got 4, prevents the next 2 damage that would be dealt to you this turn. That's huge. It's not it's 2 or 1-on-1. It's so cool.
It prevents daggers from assassin. It prevents the small reactions from a lot of decks. It prevents breakpoints versus lighting heroes that they go. Aurora goes, make a rune chant, attack for 4, and they have channel on board. So now you need to blow a
Yeah.
billion cards. No. Just well grounded. Prevent the rune chant. Block with a 3 block. Prevent the breakpoint, and you just evenly traded a super awkward, block, which is pretty important.
Yeah, it's. I'm starting to see this now, and I know I'm going off a slightly off topic, but I'm starting to see a lot of this now with new sets where these common cards are so like good. They're so well rounded, and well grounded is well rounded. It's honestly, it feels fair. The cost is 4 Earth cards in your banish zone. I know that's like it does nothing until that happens, but when it does, bruh, like you tell me any piece of equipment in the game that just goes, this could block 2, or it blocks 1-on-1. I know it's instant. Like that's nuts. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say it's majestic level, but in the old days, you would probably feel that this would be a majestic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree, and it's really interesting that we get more options. I think that's the more fun part, because I think we've seen with all of the new heroes that there are some weird pieces of equipment that we never expected, and well grounded is one of those examples. That
It's amazing design, and that's the equipment. So let's get stuck in to the deck. I think it's worthwhile going through the decomposed cards. I don't like. Is that fair? Because when we're starting this game up, it's probably the cards that we need to. They're the most important ones. Is that unless I'm wrong?
definitely. No, that's definitely the case. I mean, like we already said, what we need to do towards the first few turns of the game is bin as many cards as possible. We need to reach the 4th banish cards quickly. So most of the time, that means we need to play at least 2 decomposed cards to reach the 4th
Mm,
4 cards in banish, and then we need to play either our 3rd or 4th copy of decompose to actually reach the Florian full effect.
yeah,
So
that's
we need to get them as quickly as possible. Yeah.
okay. So felling of the crown. this card, if you've seen the Verdant's deck tech, I sort of break down a little bit more with this. But this felling of the crown, attacking the hand, decomposing cards, 3 for 8, and plow under, coming in for just decomposing more cards again and attacking the arsenal. Oh, these cards are cooked. But yeah, why did you put these in your deck? It just seems like, well, because they're the best decomposed cards.
I mean, currently we do not have too many options, and that's probably the only thing that could hold Florian back. That these are by far the best decomposed cards, and if you want to decompose, they are coming on the best kit because we slightly struggle to find good enough cards to actually do,
Hmm.
to decompose. So, and Felling of the Crown and Plow Under are actually how you win the game, obviously, because keeping a two-card hand that swings for 8 and removes a card from their hand, and most of the time does a huge tempo swing, and pair this up with a few rune chants as well, most of the time you're leeching damage, and if you're not leeching damage, you get a full hand afterwards, which both ends of the spectrum feel great when we ever use this card.
Yeah, 100%. And then root-bound carapace as well. Just seems amazing, right? Because it's defensively doing what you need to do. Is this card sometimes a little bit awkward? Like, does it have its moments?
It definitely does, but the red one at least blocks for 3, so most of the time I'd say no.
Mm.
I'd say it's not. It doesn't have many problems. While the yellow one sometimes yes, the yellow copy sometimes it is, but versus most aggressive strategies because the most aggressive strategies like Aurora, Auxilio, ninjas, maybe sometimes a warrior, because they help you block. It actually plays great into your game plan to okay simply block with 3 cards and then I even play a defense reaction of next turn to decompose the cards of the last turn and helps me speed up so when I reach the point where I maintain my life total, I block a lot, I have a bunch of cards in the graveyard, and it really plays well into your play style. We would love for it to be a slightly better card, but it's still good enough.
Yeah, no, 100%. Right. I think it's worthwhile at this point going through just the Earth cards. Is there certain Earth cards that are in this category of they're just the Earth cards, and there's some of them that are late game Earth cards? Like, I don't know if you want to go through.
I mean, I think the most important card is Fruits of the Forest to take notice that the fact this is the most slot that I've seen other decks change a lot, and that many people are the first card that they are like, oh, maybe we could cut this card. I honestly feel like that Fruits of the Forest, red and blue, are really important. They are so important that I even considered yellow
Oh,
because yeah, going towards the first few turns of the game, it's fine to lose 1 or 2 value to actually bin some cards in the graveyard, because if the first copy of Felling of the Crown you draw is active, it's a whole different universe compared to getting your first copy of Failing of the Crown and not having enough earth on the graveyard, or not having the fourth earth in the graveyard. It's a completely different world. So we want the first time we draw our good earth cards for them to instantly be good. That's why I feel Fruits of the Forest are so important.
oh, right. That's fair. That's fair. I can see that argument. I tell you what, I will just sort of sneak in here with a So Tomorrow Blue. I
Mm-hmm.
was a bit like, yeah, you got to put this in, but it's a bit of a weird one at the same time because it asks for you to put an Earth card in the like to put it back, so you're not gaining more because this will go into the banish zone if that makes sense. But what? Why did you put So Tomorrow in?
So tomorrow really helps the first half of our game plan, which is to actually get to the 4
Yeah.
cards in the banish zone. And that's a huge difference because when we are at 4 cards, 4 earths in banish, Felling of the Crown actually swings for 8, our chest is active, our boots are active, Plow Under swings for 6, etc., etc. So playing a show tomorrow and let it banish itself, and then making a single full decompose card instantly gets us to 4 cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty important. That's what actually breaks the math, because otherwise we would only be able to have 4 earth cards in the banish zone only if we play 2 copies of decompose cards. So that flexibility sometimes is pretty important.
Okay, okay. Is it important this card has to go into the arsenal? Do you play this from hand?
I mean, many times with this deck we get 4 card hands because the opponent wants to block out our interruptive or annoying attacks. So I've played this card from a hand more times than I thought I would.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Is the cost one awkward?
Sometimes it is, but most of the time you're only doing that with a full hand, so you don't really mind.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Like,
I'm doing you some serious grilling with this so tomorrow because I think I've thought about this card so much, and I'm like, I don't know, one cost. But I mean, I'm sitting here theory crafting, but I haven't tried it out. But has it felt good?
which card again? Sorry.
So tomorrow, has it felt good?
So Timur, I mean, definitely, and sometimes towards the later stages of the game versus Guardians and stuff, getting more copies of Felling of the Crown is always good.
Awesome, awesome. Right, moving over, Autumn's Touch. I mean, it's your blue bot through, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, good, good. Earth block 3, blue.
Earth bot 3 equals good, right? I tell you what. I'm gonna start. We'll move over to. I'm gonna move over to Sigil of Earth, right? So Sigil of Earth, 0 cost go again at the beginning of the action phase. Destroy this when it leaves the arena. Embodiment of Earth. You got 3 copies of this. I'm intrigued.
So, it feels a lot of blue non-attack Earth,
Yeah,
which towards the first few turns of the game you can just play it out of your hand. If you go first or second and you have a full hand, you can just play it out and it will eventually go to the graveyard, which is pretty relevant. The fact that blocks 2 is a slight less of a problem in Florian, because when we are active and when we block with the chest, getting 2 embodiments actually makes this card blocks for 4, which solves the bigger part of its problem. But why Sigil of Earth? The biggest reason is splintering Deadwood.
ah,
There there are many decks that we do not have a target for splintering Deadwood, mainly red.
yeah,
So actually manually having a target in our deck that can set up splintering Deadwood, sometimes it's pretty relevant. Getting a 3 card hand and go Sigil of the Earth into splintering Deadwood, pop my Sigil, make 2 embodiments of Earth, make 2 rune chants. If splintering Deadwood hits, I destroy an embodiment of Earth, make another 2 rune chants. It's a pretty interesting sequence.
yeah. Plus, as well, I guess if you're just early game in this, you can go, well, I get these Earth cards out of my hand. It's not the same as Fruits of the Forest, but you know, it's something, right? We're filling the graveyard. At the end of the day, it's just it goes in the next turn. I like it. Seeds of Tomorrow. This card's interesting, right? But
These
break it down.
So this card plays a pretty important role in the deck, and it's most of the time when Florian is active or when we play our Felling of the Crown, there are 2 answers our opponent could do. They either lose a card and take 8 and they try to maintain the tempo, where we are super happy because we just dealt 8 free damage and remove the card from their hand,
Mm-hmm.
or they block everything and set up. They block 6, play a card, put a card in arsenal, and are like, okay, Florian, you can have a 4 card hand. I know you're playing a defensive deck. There is nothing you can do to. You do not have many cards to punish me by getting a 4 card hand. And this is where Seeds of Tomorrow shines, because any random card we get, we have our turn, we even are stuck, we have a 3 card play and a Haunting Reddition, a block card.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mind slamming that card in arsenal. Any card that exceeds our hand, we just put it in arsenal. We don't care even if it's never playable. Even Autumn stats blue, whatever. We don't care, because between the 3 copies of Seeds of Tomorrow and the 2 copies of Tome of Harvest, we will actually at some point cash out the value of simply having a card in Arsenal.
That's totally fair. It's almost like, you know, crown of seeds, right? Which is gone. Which is gone. It's gone
It's
forever.
it's it's the same. It's the same, mindset what we used to do with Crown of Seeds back in the day, which is slightly harder now, obviously. But it's really important to have access to that because if you think about Seeds of Tomorrow, that it's a 2 card prevent 5, that's pretty mediocre, and I agree. But if you think about Seeds of Tomorrow, that a card that you wouldn't normally put in Arsenal, and you just lose a card that you weren't going to use, and you get 5 points of prevention split between a billion small attacks, that's great. That suddenly, from this perspective, it's actually pretty strong.
Yeah, no, 100%. Plus, as well, with these big dominate attacks or whatever, it's yeah, it's that real. I like the idea of going. I can't possibly put this card into Arsenal, but if I keep the, if I, do you know what I mean? You can just sort of look at your hand and go, it doesn't matter. Bam, in it goes. I'll get this. This is going to be the fuel for next turn. I love that concept. I was thinking, I don't know, 3 copies, but that mindset of thinking, yeah, actually, this Arsenal's going to be not a non-issue. Plus, as well, CNC.
Yeah, I mean, I started with 2 copies, but sometimes I drew the first copy in the early game, and I'm like, now I only have 1 copy.
Yeah,
It's slightly rougher, so 3 copies makes it sure that I can reliably do this line.
cool. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to move into Toma Harvest now because I feel like is this sort of following that same sort of mindset, but you're drawing cards.
Yeah, I mean, Tom of Harvest is actually the exact same mindset, but Tom of Harvest is actually good because it actually helps you find the decomposed cards,
Yeah.
which is also pretty great. It helps you dig through your deck, and sometimes it will even save a card for the later stages of the game. And the best example for that, for instance, is Arcane Seeds. You
Mm-hmm.
only want to play Arcane Seeds after you've activated Florian. So if you have an Arcane Seeds in your arsenal and you're like, I don't want to play this yet, and you get a Dome of Harvest, you're like, perfect, I can now save this card for if we ever go to the later stages of the game to get the full value out of my card.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Um, and I think that's some of the low key ones, but we'll carry on with the Earth trend. We'll start off from Arcane Seeds Life. So it's the meld cards. Whoa! But I
Yeah.
love zero cost meld cards are like mwah, beautiful, beautiful. That's where you feel like this we're truly melding at this point. So yeah, create rune chant on the left side, gain 1 life. So you put 3 copies in, it blocks a 3, it's an Earth card. What's this? This is a weird one.
No brainer.
I
This
know it's a
card does
no-brainer. Yeah.
everything that we want with this deck. It's if you get it in the first half of the game, you simply play it, instantly goes to the graveyard and generates 3 value. Insane. If you want to block with it, it's a 3 block non-attack earth card. Does everything. If you get it towards the later stages of the game, it's make 4 runes and heal 1. It's a revel without any, it's a revel of rune blood without any setup. It's beyond insane.
Now you put it like that, I'm like, yeah, that's incredibly flexible card. That's just seems pretty gash at every point of every stage of the game. That makes sense. Now, Thistle Bloom Life. I thought this one was really awkward. Now it's a meld card, 0 cost, non-attack action, block free, Earth, all hitting the right stuff. But the Thistle Bloom side of things, that's the part that I'm a little bit struggling with. But so why did you put this in?
So, first of all, having access to a non-attack 3 block that can, towards the first stage of the game, simply go to the graveyard for 1 life
Mm-hmm.
is almost good enough. It's almost already, if that was the only effects of the card,
Yeah.
heal 1 at instant speed and go to the graveyard block 3 as a non-attack, it's almost good enough as well. Sometimes Thistle Bloom, there are some decks, some slower decks most of the time, that you want to set up turns rather than simply attack them because they also struggle with actually doing something with their 4-card hands. And that's where Thistle Bloom is pretty great. And that's where it actually combines with the Fruits of the Forest. Because I've seen some lists running Sigil of Solace, but even though you lose one value in this sequencing of going Sigil into Thistle Bloom, Fruits of the Forest into Thistle Bloom is actually one, 2 value less, but it's still pretty good. Making 4 rune chants after Florian has flipped and healing 3, so getting a 7 value out of your 2-card hand in setup. That's pretty great. That's how you kill guardians most of the
Yeah,
time.
that is true. And I think the bet, like as you're saying this, the way I think of this is that it's like a read the runes that goes like this, right? The floor of this is a read the runes blue, yeah, which is meh, worse. But if you manage to get that health going, you go, okay, well this is just a really big read the runes. So
And,
yeah,
and even though the numbers are not insane, what we care most about this card is the flexibility. The
mm,
fact that we get so many options while having this card in our hand. Don't get me wrong, this card most of the time blocks,
yeah,
but that's fine.
yeah,
That's a 3 block. We do not. If you notice, the only 3 block non-attack Earth cards we are not running are the channels.
yeah.
But that's the only 3 block non-attacks that we are not running in this deck.
Sure. No, that's fair. It does it you can tell just because the color of the card and the number on the bottom right, bottom right is 3 is the key here. That's what that and it's flexible. And we'll end with Germinate again. It's a Earth block 3 blue. It says Florian specialization. Create a rune chant or embodiment of Earth token. Repeat this process X more times. It is a cost XX, so kind of it's in the same realms as Sonata and everything, right? All right. You feel like you're definitely putting this in for a lot of its stuff, but the actual playing of the card, right? Is this sell it to me? Sell it.
I mean, what a lot of people do versus Florian is that when they feel like they're losing the tempo game because you drown them in value, they're like, okay, I'm going to fatigue you now, Florian. And Germinate shows itself is like, oh, you called for me. Haha, Germinate. So playing this card out of Arsenal for 10, making 12 rune chants and healing, 6, you instantly end games versus any deck that will not punish you for getting a 4-card hand, or if they try to play this game that they struggle to not allow themselves to get killed. This is the perfect card for taking a turn off while you have full tempo. And also this card, that's the best use of the card. And again, towards the first turns of the game, you're fine to just go, oh, I heal 1, make a rune chant. That's a 2 value out of my Earth card that now goes to the graveyard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the first stages of the game, gain 2 value, put a card in graveyard. That's fine. Towards the later stages of the game, I want to set up a kill. I'm playing a Germinate, creating a billion value. Because, again, if you haven't noticed yet, the creator runesend or embodiment of Earth repeats. So every time you trigger this, you trigger Florian again. So it's not create 2 runesend, so you make 3. It's create a runesend, so you make 4, actually. If you pay it for, if
It's
X
it's
1.
the word repeat this process. It's
Mm.
not create that many and then he goes it's plus 1. You go create 1. Yeah, it's almost in that same vein of how Verdant says heal 1, heal 1, heal 1. It's well make 1 and now we'll do it again. And then every time, yeah, Florian's looking at that every single time. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts. And then just that plot, just heal at the end, it just feels like it's just an absolute Brucey bonus for sure. So that is your Earth cards, the big strong ones, I guess. And then let's move over to some of the just the normal attacks, I guess. So you got Command and Conquer. Nice. Yorgos
Yo,
puts Command and Conquer in his deck. Whoa!
didn't expect that too.
Yeah.
In the next episode, I might have Pamel Tunic as well.
Whoa!
Yeah. So, I mean, uh, Command and Conquer most of the time slows down the game, and you want the game to slow down. You want them to block with 2 cards, and rather than play a full, rather than play a 5 card hand, play a 3 card hand. So the damage is not that much, so you can block efficiently, and while you stack your cards in the graveyard, and that's perfect for Command and Conquer. Pretty much the same goes with Enlightened Strike. It's a good in a 5 card hand because you can extend. It's one of the few ways you can use to extend. And in 2 card hands, you can do 5, draw a card. You always draw a card if you don't have an arsenal for the reasons we've already said about Siege of Tomorrow. And sometimes, you get a full hand and you go make some rune sands, 5 go again into Scythe, and you do a turn that resembles, an aggressive turn. So filler cards, but great filler cards. And Lightning
Sure.
Strike and Command and Conquer.
I was just going to say that with the Banner of Shit announcement, Crown of Providence has made a massive resurgence. Has that made a massive dent on Command and Conquer in terms of its it feels like as time has gone on, Command and Conquer is really strong, still very strong, but it's just not like do you know what I mean? It's losing a lot of that oomph as the game has gone on. It feels like would this easily be swapped to weakest link if the the meta just switches it that way?
That's definitely the case, and that's probably the reason why I'm fine with putting Command and Conquer in my slower Florian deck that wants to play a fair trade game. But I wouldn't put Command and Conquer in my ultra aggressive Aurora deck or something.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's
Uh,
fair. If someone's struggling with the Command and Conquer pick, is there just another option?
There are so many cards that we could use in its place. I mean, even decompose cards would be better. Any 2/4/6 card that interacts with the opponent is great, And I also have in the maybes a card that I would really want to use, Steer the Wildwood. Is
Yeah,
a card I would love to use in this deck, but unfortunately, the slots are slightly too tight. So, swapping out Command and Conquer for Steer the Wildwood would be a pretty fine choice as well.
yeah, that's fair. And then we got E Strike. Feels like a real good like just glue of the deck card, right? Where you've got a big hand, can't use it all. E Strike solves that problem.
Yeah, and that's you do like numbers. You do like on the first few turns of the game, you are fine to just announce that you're still playing the game. You're not just blocking.
That's fair enough. Yeah, so I imagine the +2 and go again are +2 is the highest. Go again maybe draw a card lowest.
I'd say it's draw a card, go again. I'd say,
Oh,
yeah.
so fair enough. How often are you gonna? Oh, you just want to draw a card just to slam it into the arsenal. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Cool. 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 That's fair. That's fair. And then we'll move over to Splinter in Deadwood. Blue. I like this card. I don't know why. Right? I don't know. I've got no real reason to have some major attachments to Splinter in Deadwood. Apart,
I think
whoever
it had a
spoiled it,
yeah, it had a pretty good spoiler.
yeah.
It had a pretty good.
Awesome card. Immediately saw this when I spoiled the card. Went Florian. It's just like it. The numbers are nuts. But coming in as blue, sell it.
So, first of all, these types of deck naturally seem to have a weak matchup into Rangers.
Right.
Because Rangers can dominate. They want, Azalea won't let us block that much. So having a blue card that can actually interact with them, popping a Blood Rot to make a
Mm.
rune sound, or popping an Inertia that would make you lose your arsenal, is actually a pretty good filler to have. So anytime you play versus a deck that can create auras on you, Splintering Deadwood is super good because of that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still a 3 for 5. And towards the later stages of the game, sometimes we do the play where we said with Sigil of the Earth, where we can play Sigil of the Earth, play the Splintering, and now we make 2 rune sands, and we actually have a hit effect And all of this comes out of our blue block 3 card, which is
Yeah. It's
which
great.
the blue slot. I'm really happy about this card.
Yeah,
This block.
it feels like it's just naturally slots in there very, very well. And then we'll go down to some defensive option cards. You've got Haunting Rendition. You've got 3 copies of this card. I was immediately, when I saw this, going, ugh. And then after I play with it, I'm like, ooh, ah. So I will say, I learned this the hard way. Don't put this in your Arsenal, and it might seem like it's so obvious, Hamish. I'm like, yeah, but I somehow thought that the instant would work, but it doesn't. It doesn't work. It's cool, I walk into the stingy nettles first, and then I know that it stings. So that's don't put it in your Arsenal. Telling you now, don't do that. But why did you
You
put this
don't
in your
put it
deck?
in your arsenal unless you're playing Florian and next hand you draw that here. So in this deck, put it in your arsenal. Actually, don't listen to Hamish in that
Okay,
regard.
fine.
Put it in your arsenal in general. Okay.
Okay, because you can actually fix it. But why did you put 3 copies of this in your deck?
So, first of all, the block 4 actually prevents a lot of breakpoints, and that's pretty important,
Mm-hmm.
especially towards the first stages of the game where you actually want to block. And I really love the flexibility of the prevention too, because again, some decks might want to find ways to leak damage, and Haunting Rendition is actually pretty great to actually have the be the last one talking about how you want to defend. And this card is even better because after you flip Florian, it actually creates 2 rune chance.
Mm,
So towards the first stages of the game, it's a block 4, which is pretty great. And towards the later stages of the game, it's a 2 prevent instant that creates 2 rune chance. So it can help you push out enough damage to force them into a situation where they might need to start blocking with cards on their hand, etc.
no, that's awesome. That sounds super flexible. And then, ugh, yuck, warmongers.
So we needed a blue non-attack. So
Yeah.
we needed a blue non-attack in order to because sometimes you do not have the Viserai where 30 of your cards are non-attack. No, we have very minimal amount of non-attack. So we needed a non-attack for the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And Warmongers is good because we don't really care most of the time to play non-attacks. Most of the time our turn is simply, attack.
Mm-hmm.
Back to you. And it would help our matchup into mainly Ranger,
Mm.
which we might struggle a bit because they might prevent us from putting a lot of cards in the graveyard at the beginning stage of the game, or they might not care because we do not have that many hit effects, especially towards the first stage of the game. So that's why we needed this card in the main deck.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I hate it for no reason whatsoever. But no, it makes total sense in Florian. Like it makes absolute total sense. So that is your main board, and you have about 51 cards in there. So that leaves you with being able to slot in 9 cards. Hey, look, there's weakest link. Hey, I'm clever. So let's go through this. We'll start off with the equipment: Crown of Dichotomy and Dideric Carapace. Arcane Barrier. I'm a clever man.
The easiest way to go to 3AB without sacrificing too many of your other equipment, because Grasp works well even versus Kane towards the later stage of the game if we ever manage to flip.
Hmm.
So that's the easiest way to go to 3AB.
Yeah, yeah. And then is Dideric Carapace getting slotted in against Acilio and Verdance? Because
Definitely.
yeah,
Versus all the wizards you want the 3AB, because also even though the new wizards have attack, the Edric Carapace has block value as well.
ha ha, broken card. So let's move over. We've got, I guess, really, how are these? Are there certain cards grouped together?
Yeah, when siding in, we have, as you said, 9 cards that we need to side in, and we need to side in at least one decompose card. We need
Uh,
one more decompose card to get sided in. Mm, The rule of thumb is that if you're playing versus an aggressive strategy, we side in the yellow rootbound carapace. If we play versus a more value or slower strategy, we prefer to side in the cadaver stealing red.
yeah.
So we get to our 12 decomposed cards, and then we fill the rest of the slots comparing what we need. Do we, Are we playing versus a Zen or a Kaio, so we want the weakest link, or are we playing versus a deck that creates aura, so we get reclamation, or are we playing versus a ranger or assassin, and we want the splintering deadwood red to remove the bad card, the bad auras they give us.
Sure. And then I take it the summers. So Rootbound Cowpace aggressive, Cadaverous Tilling slow, Summers Fall Enigma.
Pretty much.
Yeah, Enigma gets a whole card because
I mean, I even have in the maybe slots. I even considered the cut through the facade to have even more hate for this matchup because it actually feels a matchup that we slightly struggle.
yeah,
But I think we are in a good spot and just accept the fact that if the board gets huge at some point, it's just simply a bad matchup. So we move forward with that.
yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool. So I can the Malefic. You went through the Runic Reclamations and Splinter and Deadwoods. That makes sense. If just look at this, I suppose everyone is. If you read the card and you feel like it's attacking that person in that way, that is the card you should be slotting in for sure. Malefic Incantation. What is that coming in for?
So versus decks that we need to be proactive, like Enigma, Kano. Sometimes we want the Malefic Incantation to actually be able to push a bit more damage,
Mm,
and versus for the big-hearted people that want to go all the way into their value, you can actually decompose with Summer's Fall the Malefic Incantation back into your deck after you triggered it twice.
right. So I say that again. I don't what. So
So, with Summer's Fall,
yeah,
you can actually target your own aura and shuffle, put it in the bottom of your deck to trigger it again. So
right.
after you've triggered Malefic Incantation, you can Summer's Fall it back into your deck. Ha ha!
Aha!
Oh.
Aha! I picked the wrong card. I was looking at Summerwood Shelter thinking, what? Oh, yeah, you can you summer fall it, you pick that card, that goes to the bottom of your deck. Alright, okay. Mega value.
We would love in this deck to also have Incantation, but we can't run too many of those cards because sometimes we get them into the first stages of the game and it's pretty horrible. So I just went with Malefic Incantation because it's smoother also in the curve because it costs 0.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 0 for 6, it's good in my book. So
Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
fair. And now I am moving over to the Summerwood Shelter. It's a lot of summer cards. Summer's Fall, Summer's Shelter. So yeah, why you got one copy of Summerwood Shelter? Just one.
I mean, I wanted an extra hate versus the taller decks.
Yeah.
So Summer Good Shelter is actually pretty great because it plays into how we want to defend towards the first stages of the game. So that's why I prefer this card over, a Sink Below or something else because the fact that it's Earth is super relevant versus the decks where we want decided in.
That's fair. That's fair. So that is. I love this solid main board. That's just the way my brain computes into this as well. Is these this feels very tight, very solid, very easy to just sort of pick up for anyone to go. I get it. Like you just put these cards in. These cards are attacking that play style. I love it. You got a lot of maybes. Just wanna. There is a lot, so I don't want to. What are you thinking about with the channels, for example? What's the maybes there?
So about Channel of the Millennium Tree, it was a way to end games.
Mm.
You know, Channel of the Millennium Tree into Scythe. Actually, Scythe attacks for
Oh,
4 arcane,
yeah. So
4
that's
arcane
a
and
3 for
3.
7.
Because they would never have more than AB1 into a Rune Blade, so most of the time that leaks 3 damage. And because we are an Earth deck and we have so many, like between Grasp of the Arcanite and our Scythe, it's so easy to pitch to Earth cards
Yeah.
and maintain Channel of the Millennium Tree for actually 3 attacks, which is insane in my book, to
Mm.
actually be able to use Channel of the Millennium Tree. And it's a way to help end games if the meta game ends up being, slower.
Mm.
And as we've already said, a non-attack Earth block 3 card is almost already good enough.
Yes, that's true. That is very true. I can see the cut through for sub. But what about the is Channel Mount Heroic even? Is that a bit
Channel Mount Heroic, there is a list going around. Have been some people tinkering with slamming every single card that says go again into Florian and just slamming Channel Mount Heroic. I wouldn't go that far because for the same reasons, it's pretty easy to keep Channel Mount Heroic for more than one turn with this deck because of how many ways you have of pitching cards. So if the meta game ends up being a meta game where we are faced only with enigmas and fatigue dashes and I don't know Teklovosens, and we need to actually be the proactive deck and actually have a way to kill them, slamming Rune Rager, Swarm, Gloomveil, and Channel Mount Heroic could be a way that we could potentially play into these strategies
okay?
as
Yeah,
well.
I can see all those things weaving in together for sure. Okay, I can see cut through the facade. I can imagine Earthform as well as that sort of slower base, sort of
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
Earthform is good into the decks that don't want to block you, and the card I would cut for Earthform would be Summer's Fall, because it's a 2 card 7 Earthform that most aggressive strategies will never block. So you
mm.
get an embodiment of Earth, and it actually smooths out. It helps you block better while slamming some cards in the graveyard. It doesn't have Decompose, which is a huge problem with a 2 block Earth card, but
Mm.
still could be good enough.
Yeah, no. There's a lot of these I can sort of see here. The Runeblade Incantation is again, it could be that later game. Yeah, I like swapping out for Malefic for the big sort of this is coming in for when Florian's activated. Hold the Line is a good defensive card. The Sigils, yeah, I can see all of this. The last one I'm a little bit sort of toying with is the Earth Embrace. Go again at the beginning of your end phase, create an embodiment Earth token. Then, if you haven't banished an Earth card this turn, destroy it. It seems super defensive.
Yeah, but it really depends on how easy it is for you to set up having playing Arts Embrace, decompose, next turn have another decompose, next turn have another decompose. Then you're golden, but that's not an easy sequence to perform. That's why it's in the maybes.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think maybe this card is something for later on down the line. Like if they
This card might be better with the Earth weapon, with Rotwood Reaper.
right, sure,
That's another reason to maybe want to use this card rather than Scythe.
sure. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
About Florian, I think one of the most interesting parts is how flexible the deck feels like while deck building. So if you enjoy this type of play, just get these cards, make something similar, and there are so many cards you can switch for other cards. You have so many options between Earth, Runeblade, defensive stuff, offensive stuff, cards that create rune sounds. It's such it's so fun to actually deck build and tinker with Florian and see what's working or what's not.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think fundamentally though, I think the you got your decomposed cards, your earth cards are really solid. I love the idea of the fruit of the forest. I think this has really helped understand that core part of what the earth cards you really do need, and then everything else, like you said, yeah, just you just slot. There's the rest of the gaps to fill, but you can't ignore what you need to do to get this engine moving near the early to mid game, which I think is just absolutely solid. So just on another last note, is there any sort of matchups that Florian? We've talked about a lot of it. It's like heights, but what's the matchups you just don't want to see?
I mean, probably any deck that has more inevitability compared to you in the later stages of the game is a bad matchup, like Pistol Dash, Teklovossen, Enigma, Verdance if they are heavy on the OTK line. So these are decks that you want to play a slow game so they have time to set up their thing. And if their thing is better than your thing, that's a rough matchup.
Sure.
So that's probably the hard part. But whatever you lose in these matchups versus any deck that has in its core game plan to attack you and you actually get enough value for blocking and they give you putting cards in the graveyard for free, you just outvalue them so much. Like ninjas, rune blades, warriors, brutes to some extent. All of these decks that are looking to attack you and play a fair game that by attacking you have so many tools of disrupting their plans and doing simply better numbers compared to them.
That's fair. And I imagine as well there's enough leeway to sort of tailor this to go, you know what, if the games are going super slow, there is an inevitability for, like, I make a lot of rune chants near the end sort of approach, potentially.
That could be the case, but most of the time, these end game scenarios versus Enigma, for instance, you can't compete with that with making five, even 10 rune sense. You can't really compete with that. Victor, on the other hand, for instance, doesn't have an inevitability game plan, and even though it's a good slow deck, you simply outvalue them. If they do not drown you towards the mid stages of the game and you actually win that race in the mid stage of the game, their end game is way worse than you. So even though it's a slower deck, you can beat them. But you know, Kano comboing you off, or Verdance or something, or Das having 5 pistols and shooting you for 1 billion per turn, you can't really compete with that most
No,
of the time.
that's fair. That's fair. Again, thank you so much, Yorgos, for breaking this down. We've
Thank
done
you
it.
for having me.
We've done it another year of first take deck techs with my boy Yorgos. Any shout outs before we wrap this up?
I really want to shout out the rest of the Team Fab Chaos. I mean, they really helped me. Everyone was on board when we were like, "Oh, Florian!" I mean, the Florian chat started popping list every 5 minutes. Oh, root
Yeah.
and defensive fatigue. So it was such a blast, for them helping me to reach the point where we to
Yeah.
reach the conclusion. Yeah.
Amazing. Your team's awesome. I've spent an amazing amount of time with them at Pro Tour Amsterdam. These guys are genuinely awesome and very good players. So watch out for Pro Tour Europe. I know that these guys are going to be coming in swinging. So, yeah, thank you so much, Florian. And thank you very much, everyone. See you later.